Welcome back, folks. Hope you're doing well, and today we're going to be making tiramisu. Now, we're not making any old traditional tiramisu, which technically is going to upset a few Italians, but we're going to do a nice little twist on it. We're going to do a caramel tiramisu. So we're not going to be using those crappy sponge fingers. Oh no, we're going to be making our own sponge today. We're going to use Genoise sponge, and we're going to soak those little bad boys up in some beautiful coffee. In addition, we're going to be making that mascarpone filling, cooking out the eggs, folding the mascarpone through it, the whipped cream, and then not forgetting that dulce de leche for the caramel as well. Oh yes, it's back again. And then we're going to finish it with cocoa powder and possibly some espresso powder. So let's have a little goosey ganders and see what this is like, shall we? So technically it's not tiramisu, but it is tiramisu. So we're going to pop the tiramisu in a little cake tin. So I wanted to do less portions this week for you viewers at home. Maybe there's one or two of you in the house and you didn't want to be bundled with loads of tiramisu. So technically I might need to half the recipe I'm going to do today. So if you're already enjoying the content, feel free to subscribe. Also hit that little bell button, which will give you notifications every Friday when we release these videos. But anyway, let's make a start for today, and I hope you guys and gals are going to enjoy the video. So let's start preheating that oven for the sponge. So we're going to need 180 Celsius or 350 Fahrenheit. So the first thing you want to do for the Genoise sponge is melt down 20 grams of unsalted butter or 1 tablespoon. Next we want to separate 4 eggs, keeping the whites and the yolks. And then you want to weigh yourself out 60 grams of caster or fine granulated sugar or 1/3 of a cup. Oh look, we actually got plenty of sugar this week. Makes a change. And then you want 60 grams of plain or all-purpose flour, which is about ½ a cup. And yes, I know the bowl is very big. That's all I got left though. And next, grab your KitchenAid with the whisk attachment, add in your egg whites, and then popping them onto a low speed. I wonder if there's ever going to be a week where this doesn't happen. So once you finally fine-tuned your brain, place onto a low speed and whisk for a couple of minutes until frothy. Did I say low speed? I meant medium speed. Also, don't forget about your butter. It should be melted and ready to go. So now it's started to froth up. We're going to add the sugar little by little. And once you've added the rest of the sugar, let this whip up until it's at peak. And if you're doing this by hand, I'm talking about the egg whites, not yourself. So once they've peaked and they're nice and shiny, you want to start dropping the speed down to a low and start adding the egg yolks. So once those have incorporated, turn the KitchenAid off, and then we're going to lift this up. And then we're going to fold the flour through using a spatula. And if you whisk it through, you could potentially knock all the air out of it, so we just want to be careful with that. That's why we took it off the KitchenAid. So you just want to fold it until all those little bubbles, pockets of flour have incorporated into the mix. So once that's incorporated, we're going to add the butter. But before we do that, we'll add a ½ teaspoon of vanilla extract to the butter. Then we're going to add the vanilla butter and then just gently incorporate that through the mix. So once the mix is incorporated, grab yourself 2 flat trays with silk mats. If you haven't got silk mats, you can use parchment paper. Just use a bit of the egg mix to pop underneath so the parchment paper doesn't fly off if you've got a fan-assisted oven. And then we're going to pour half of the mix onto one tray. Then using a little crank spatula or a spatula just to spread it out nice and evenly. And if you're thinking, where's the fingers? Hold your horses. This is going to be for the discs, and then we're going to pipe out the fingers on there. So using a thick piping nozzle and a piping bag, fill that bag up and then pipe some lovely little fingers onto the tray. And if you're wondering what size, roughly about 10 centimeters or 3.9 inches. And if you've got any leftover, just pop it on this tray and then smooth it back out again. And then we're going to pop these in the oven for about 5 to 10 minutes till nice and golden or spring to touch, or both. So the sponges have just come out the oven and they're looking fantastic, nice and golden, and also spring to touch, which gives you an indication they're cooked all the way through. So we're going to pop these onto a cooling rack and then we're going to come back to them. And to stop that big sponge from drying out when we cut it, we're just going to put a bit of parchment paper over the top to hold in the moisture. So next it's time for the coffee, and we're going to need 225 ml or 1 cup of hot water. Now, depending on what coffee you want, we're going to go with the instant espresso, but if you want to go for something of your own choice, absolutely, you go for it. And we've gone for about 2 tablespoons in here. Chef, that seems like a lot of coffee. Nah, be fine. In addition, we're going to add 2 tablespoons of chocolate liqueur. I wonder if that tastes good in a cup of coffee. Maybe a little bit too much in the coffee. So set that coffee mix aside just to let it cool down, and we'll soak it last minute. So this is the cake mold we're going to be using today, so it's pretty small. So this is 10 centimeters in height, which is 3.9 inches, or 4 centimeters in width, which is about 1.5 inches. So this does have a removable bottom as well. So what we're going to do is actually lightly oil this and then line it with cling film. And when I say lightly oil it, I'm talking about a dab of your finger. You don't need a lot of oil in this. And if you're asking me why are you oiling it, because the cling film will actually stick really well to it and you won't have those air bubbles. So once that's lined, you want to grab yourself a ring that fits on the inside of the tin. So we're actually going to cut ourselves some nice little cylinders so we can actually layer it all the way through, but we're not going to soak it yet in the coffee. And all you're looking for is roughly about 6 cylinders, and we might not use all of these. And then as for the fingers, you just want to measure up how far you want to trim it so it actually lines up perfectly when you pop these in later on. So now it's time to make the egg filling to mix in with the mascarpone and the whipped cream, but we're going to cook out the eggs first. So we're going to need 3 egg yolks and 60 grams of sugar, which is 1/3 of a cup. So combine the two together, and using a whisk it up until it's into a nice smooth paste. And then we're going to continue whisking this on the stove with a pan of simmering water. And then we're going to place it over the water. I'm going to cook this out just until it thickens, and if you want a temperature-wise, it's 68 to 70 Celsius, which is 154 to 158 Fahrenheit. So this is going to take about roughly 5 to 10 minutes just to thicken and cook out those eggs. So as you can see, this is really thickened up now, and the eggs are actually cooked out, so we're going to take this off and set this aside to cool down. So while we're waiting for that egg mix to cool down, we'll whip up our heavy cream or whipping cream, which is about 200 ml or 4/5 of a cup. And we're going to whip it by hand. I mean, there's no point using the machine. It's not as if I'm going to pass out or anything. So once that's reached peak, set that aside. And as you can see, this is really starting to stiffen up now. So we're going to actually add the mascarpone to it. So we've got 227 grams of mascarpone here, which is about 1 cup. So we're going to add little by little and incorporate it into the egg mix. And then you should be left with that smooth, glorious mascarpone egg mix ready to go. So all we pretty much want to do is fold that into the cream. So your mascarpone mix is ready to go, so we'll set this aside. So the last thing we need to do is, the Dulce de Leche, right? I kind of forgot to boil the can. So yeah, it's kind of important to make sure you boil this the day before and for about 4 hours, and making sure it's submerged in boiling water. Taking it out, cool down, and pop it in the fridge to set overnight, which we've absolutely got time for this. Did you really think I'd forget this? Don't answer that one. So now it's time to start assembling, and we've got our sponges already. I've put the coffee into a wider bowl so we can soak them. So we're going to put that first little layer in there first, giving it a nice little soak and just laying that gently on the bottom. And then we're going to soak up those little sponge fingers we cut up as well, popping them around the side. Now you might have some issues with them standing up, but you should be able to get them in. Then we're going to pop a little small amount of the Dulce de Leche on the bottom, then followed by some of that beautiful mascarpone mix, and then soak in one of those little sponge cylinders, and then repeating the process until you hit the top. And then once you reach the top, we're just going to dust it off with a little bit of cocoa powder, maybe some espresso powder as well. So that little gem is ready to go in the fridge, so we're going to set that for a few hours. So considering we got a load of mix left over, we're actually going to make a little bit more, which I was expecting, but didn't quite nail the amount for that small portion. But is there ever such a thing as too much caramel tiramisu? I don't think so. And then just to finish the little finishing touches with that cocoa powder and espresso powder. And there we go. Used up the leftovers. So we'll pop that in the fridge as well to set. So we don't have overnight to let this set, so we do want to have a little sneak peek at it. So it might be a bit looser than per usual, but you do want to leave this in the fridge overnight and it'll be set perfectly tomorrow. So we're going to have a little goosey ganders at it now. So far so good. As I said, this is a little bit on the loose side, but it's certainly come out an absolute little gem. So as you can see, it is pretty soft, it is pretty loose, but it does need more time to set. But we need to have a look at this, regardless if it's going to droop and ooze. that's absolutely fine, but let's have a little goosey ganders in this now, shall we? Oh my goodness me. Look at that beautiful, delightful little cross section we got there. Goodness me. Looks beautiful. So we took a little slice out of there. We'll have a little tray of this. As I said before, it's not quite set, but goodness me, it's still going to be very delightful. So let's give it a try, shall we? Oh my goodness me. You get that punch of coffee. The liqueur is very nice and light, the chocolate liqueur itself. And then you get that beautiful dulce de leche. Not too sweet. It's taken some of the sweetness out of the tiramisu itself, and it's actually balanced out really nicely, working well with the coffee. Now, I know if you're very traditional and you enjoy the classic, that's absolutely fine, but this is not what we're doing today. But this is a very nice alternative option, something a little bit different. Oh my goodness me. So it's nice and creamy. You get the caramel, the coffee. Wow. I'm pretty impressed with this. This is a great alternative if you want something a little different. So other than that, I am super impressed with how this has turned out. Really, really good. The only downside, we didn't have enough time to let it set fully. But I tell you what, by tomorrow, this little cheeky bad boy right here is going to be set an absolute little treat. So make sure you give it plenty of time to set. And also the great thing with this, if you do want to go down the traditional road, all you have to do is leave out the dulce de leche, minus the whipped cream, and you'll have yourself a nice classic tiramisu. So you can go either way with this if you want to. So that's all we got time for again this week. I hope you've enjoyed this video today. Feel free to try this out, whether you want to go down the traditional route or you want to go down my route, which is the dulce de leche mixed in with the tiramisu, which I know you can argue it's not a tiramisu, but also it is. But the list of ingredients will be below in the description box, so feel free to try this out if you want to. So feel free to subscribe to the channel, always appreciated, and like or dislike the video, entirely up to you. Also, we're going to be on Twitch cooking live again, Monday to Thursday as always next week, so feel free to come stop by at 10 AM Mountain Time. But I hope you all have a lovely weekend. I'll catch you again next Friday for another delightful episode. Until then, stay safe, happy, and awesome.